Education meeting. I am looking for approval for the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. McKenzie's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Already, Mr. Rhodes has made a second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alrighty. The next thing is I'm looking for a approval to move into closed session. And the reason is to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations. And the reason for closed session is to maintain the integrity of the collective bargaining process. I'm looking for a motion for that.
Make a motion to move into closed session.
Mr. Rhodes has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Dorsey's made the second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All righty. We're going to go into closed session. We will resume the open session at 6 p.m. 23rd Board of Education quarterly meeting, which is basically a budget workshop. I'm going to report on closed session. There was only one item on closed session. That was to, for the board to be updated on negotiations with our various teams. People in closed session were the members of the board, Mr. Hushin, Mr. Kirby, who's the Director of Finance, Dr. McComas, and Ms. Manley, the Executive Assistant. No action was taken. All righty. Ms. Swanson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, Dr. McComas.
Yeah, so first I just would like to bring forward a donation approval. We had a significant donation coming in this year from a community member, Mr. Ortiz. Many of you may know him from his woodworking studio and furniture making.
Bob Ortiz,
He is
Boatman.
retiring this year and in April, I believe, and he has been profoundly generous and is donating a huge amount of his equipment to Kent County High School and for use with their combination of programs, their woodworking program, as well as their makerspace students. So we've been working on this, the logistics around this for over a year now, and so we'd like to bring forward the donation today for approval.
For donations like this, I was just curious, is there like a special thank you that we do for something like this?
I was saying to Mr. Kirby as well, I definitely would like to in April bring Mr. Ortiz in to be recognized, and I was going to check with county government to see if we could apply for one of the county commissioners citations, I think they're called. Yeah, so we can apply for things like that, and I was thinking the same thing, because this is a tremendous gift.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think he estimated the total to be 55,000 or whatever. We almost lost that. So, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the donation.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. McKenzie's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rhodes has seconded. If you will indulge me for just a second, I don't know if you guys read the letter that Mr. Ortiz attached to his donation, but I just would like to give a shout out to our school system where he says, I give it to you because I have faith in the superintendent and staff of the Kent County Public Schools and Mr. Shaw at the high school, who will receive the equipment and tools and use it as a teaching tool for their students. You know, Mr. Ortiz has a long history of support for Kent County Public Schools. He was a PTA president at Garnett Elementary School, and his daughter and son both attended. So, I mean, this is an incredibly generous donation, not only, and it's not a one and done, it's going to be the kind of thing that we will be able to use for a very long time. So, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Ortiz.
Yes, thank you,
If you
Mr.
were watching,
Ortiz.
we're very grateful. All righty. Dr. McComas, I think we're
Yeah.
still you.
It is me. So thank you, everyone. Tonight is our annual Board of Education budget work session. Last meeting, I presented the request from our staff tonight to just give our board members opportunity to kind of look through that, begin thinking about any guidance and direction that the board would like to offer me as I'm building the FY27 budget. I will, just for framing everyone's thinking tonight and discussion, walk through. So of course, we now as a board, we want to use our tax dollars wisely to advance achievement, because that's our core mission, and that our goal is for our students to have an excellent education that prepares them for personally and professionally successful life. Tonight, first thing we'll do is stop and review the requests made by our school leadership and our department leadership. Second, we'll anchor that in our theory of action that we have set forward to drive achievement. And lastly, we'll identify your priorities, or really you're providing me guidance when your thoughts on putting that budget together. So with no further ado, I'll just walk through quickly, and I will highlight really the staffing requests, because we know, as we discussed extensively last year in our budget, we have ongoing costs that we have to plan for year upon year, and then we have one-time costs. Of course, ongoing costs are primarily our people. Education is a people business, people for people, and people are expensive, and of course, the more expertise they have, the more costly they are. One-time purchases are, exactly that. We buy an object once, and we use it until it's no longer good or needs to be replaced, as the case may be, and then that's another one-time, but it's not like subscription ongoing costs. So Galena Elementary, they are requesting that we preserve the instructional assistant that was on the reduction list. Again, for anyone who may be watching, just to remember where we were a year ago, we were right-sizing our organization because significant grant funding sources had come to an end, and during that time period, our enrollment had dropped. So last year, we faced a deficit and had to really cut back. In fact, we reduced just shy of 12% of our workforce last year to right-size that budget. We were, through the generosity of our board and our commissioners, willing to preserve 16 positions for this budget cycle. What you will see throughout this presentation is that one, we were grateful to be able to preserve those instructional assistants, custodians, and maintenance personnel, and that the request is to preserve them consistently throughout. So we see Galena is asking to preserve that. They're asking for an additional instructional assistant and a teacher specialist. Actually, that's my request, and the school is in support of that.
What exactly is a teacher specialist?
So a teacher specialist is really it's a person who is a certified teacher, and they're paid a teacher salary. They serve as the principal's right hand around running the building and supporting instruction. So it's, our elementary schools do not have assistant principals, but I will tell you, as someone who has run all grade band buildings, a principal needs a right hand. You could be in an observation and a parent come into the office and really need to see somebody right away. And then you also need that support in just covering all the demands. And so that teacher specialist really serves as that teacher who can lean in on any of those. It really also serves to build that bench.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. They sort of, obviously, they're still on the teacher track, but they sort of move, if they're interested in moving towards an admin. We used to have another name for them. I can't remember what it was, but it was that kind of a thing. And we've mentioned we have no bench.
Right. So we have, of our school-based administration,
Helping teacher, that's what they used to be called.
Okay.
Because I remember Miss Giacomowitz, I think, was that
Okay.
she was navigating her way up the ladder.
Yeah. So of our school leadership, at least 40 to 60% of our school leaders are eligible to retire or approaching eligibility to retire. So we need to have that next level of leadership ready to assume principalships as they emerge in the out years.
For the teacher specialist, we have one at the high school and middle school.
The high school and middle school have actual administrators in the form of assistant principals. And so they are 12-month positions that are credentialed administrators. Our teacher specialists, while some may have admin certification, it's not a requirement to be a teacher specialist. They are still 10-month teacher positions.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
I will say this. This is one of the items I was kind of looking to be added to a couple of the schools, because every time you and I did a visit over my first year, anything could come up during the school day while we visited. And I'll be like, well, what's going on with this? And I just remember you always say they need that extra support here. They need that teacher specialist. Even my last visit, maybe a month and a half ago, we were going through the schools and I kept hearing that. So when you kind of sat down and explained to me why we need those. So
You could see it.
that's one of the things I actually seen for my whole first year, that this position is very needed for our school system.
Thank you. I will say, we were able in this year's budget to provide teacher specialists to Garnett and to Rock Hall. And I know in my conversations with Miss Rose at Garnett, she was so articulate in sharing with me how that teacher specialist has allowed her as the principal to lean more heavily into instruction. And that, of course, we know that that matters. And of course, we're very proud of Garnett being recognized as a school that is beating the odds when we look at achievement relative to poverty and the other challenges. So our principals can really speak to exactly how that position supports them. Galena, I could not afford last year to provide a third one. And this year, Galena was functioning with a grant-funded lead teacher position. Lead teacher is different than teacher specialist. The lead teacher teaches 50% of the time, and then the other 50% of the time, they are supporting instruction by either mentoring newer teachers, providing training on instructional methodologies, supporting data analysis related to student achievement, student performance. So there's a range of ways that the lead teacher supports instruction, but under the blueprint, the lead teacher teaches 50% of the time. So that's an emerging model here, and we know that the lead teachers under blueprint are compensated in a specific way to keep them in the classroom. What we will see in the next couple of years as blueprint moves further down its implementation plan, it will become more difficult to attract people into administration. And that this teacher specialist is really a way to grow that, a pipeline for that, because you still do need administrators to run buildings. Okay, and then you can see they asked for a few one-time purchases as well. I know our principal at Galena has been working on replacing furniture at the building little by little. So you see she's updating, she'd like some furniture for the library.
When they say replace classroom rugs, is it due to being outdated, not needing to be clean, or it's just a space rug we pull out, put a new one in, or pull up the carpet?
Right, she's really talking those,
Like they have the little squares.
yeah,
with
the
when you have
classroom, when you
When
see.
you have 27 kindergartners sitting on
Sitting
that
on the
rug
rug.
for an entire year, it
Yeah,
probably
they
needs
do.
to change.
Well, and they may not, I mean, she's not talking for every single
Yeah,
classroom. She's, she's looking at us, what you see here really is a principal who's projecting a system of replenishment,
Yes.
right, of
Well,
maintenance.
there was for a couple, one of the consistent requests over the years has been furniture, classroom
Mm-hmm.
furniture, and it was always the first thing that got kicked off the list when we were trying to make every dollar count, so,
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, this is where you chip away at these things little
Yeah.
by little. And for Garnett, again, you see our principal there is requesting that we preserve the 2 instructional assistants that were on the reduction list that from last year, asking for 1 additional general education teacher. First grade next year, anticipate enrollment we're looking at 56 first graders for next year. And
Is
then
it 27 kindergartners in each of the 2 classes, I
Right.
think, yeah.
these are good problems, right?
Yeah.
I put problems in their challenges in 2 buckets. This is a good one. Yes, ma'am.
For one-time cost requests, if it wasn't approved now, but then later down, there appears to be money.
Oh, yeah.
Those can be potentially paid for later.
Yep.
Okay.
And some of these one-time requests, we may be able to purchase with end-of-year money from this year.
Okay.
Right? So when we, as our finance team is able to draw to a close and see what is unspent money for this year, we may be able to tick off a few of those requests as part of, unspent funds for this year. Now, of course, that means that would be less fund balance, but we're getting in front of requests for the next year. I always try to prefer if I can buy, for example, workbooks, math workbooks or cursive workbooks. If we can purchase them in May, then you're more guaranteed that those materials arrive over the summer and are here before the first day of school. In other places I've worked, when you wait till the July 1st money and you're just getting your order in, even though you work with your vendor and say, you know, we're going to be ordering X number of things, you know, those vendors don't ship those materials till you pay for them. And so I've run into situations in other school systems where materials may not arrive till October. Well, that's a whole month without those resources. So that's why using end of year where you can and just getting that cycle of budgeting that way. Rock Hall, they are requesting an additional special education teacher and an additional general education teacher, and they, at this time, didn't have any materials requests. And just to assure you that throughout the year, as requests come to me for one-time costs, I do my very best to meet that need. So, for example, we had, was it the lacrosse team needed new something, sticks, and
Yes.
it was a
we
list
did,
of things.
New gloves and arm pads. We had a number of first-time players that came out. The cross is an expensive sport, and the stock that we had was
Old and outdated.
Broken up.
probably older than Mr. Kirby.
Yeah. You had Mr. Kirby's initials in it from when he was in math, just teasing. But the point being is that request came, we were able to meet that request. I appreciate, you know, last year when I got here, the culture was, well, don't ask because we don't have it. Well, that's
Right.
not necessarily true. Ask first. If I have it, I will get it for you, right? And if we don't have it, I'll be the first to say, we don't have it, but let's see if these community partners can help us with this. But I think, you know, we should at least entertain the request first. So I'm glad that people are starting to realize, like, things are different than people, right? That in terms of, like, the ability to meet that request.
Question for Rock Hall.
Yes.
How many special education teachers are there currently?
That I do not know. Dr. King, but off the cuff. So in total, 3, 2 for inclusion and 1 for self-contained. Thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you.
The rationale for the request is that last school year, we opened this school year, there was 4. There was an additional specialized program, and then with some increased enrollment in pre-K, there was a need to open up an additional pre-K room, and we had enough instructional assistant support and including assistant support to combine both programs, which is now being run by one special ed teacher. And how many IAs are in that room, Dr. King?
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, so there's 3 IAs and the licensed special educator in that. So, so that's where, again, we had an enrollment growth. We had to shift based on certification and skill sets around to address that enrollment growth.
And how would it look different?
So this, the principal is proposing that we add this special education teacher to that self-contained classroom. I think, is that my, yeah.
Instead of the one all consolidated, right?
Any other questions? Okay, I'll go on. And thank you, everyone, for helping me.
Let me say this. It seemed like their ask list is way shorter than it was last year.
Well, I'm presenting it different. So one of the things that last year, I put every single thing in there. These are the requests that are above
Prioritized,
what we're doing.
Okay.
Right, so what I've said is, you know, so for example, math workbooks. I don't need every principal to request math workbooks every year. That's our core curriculum. That's evidence-based and highly rated and approved by the state. We're sustaining that. So I already know I'm gonna buy replacement math books.
All right.
Right, so these are the things that would be on top of,
I like this presentation better than it was last
a
year.
little-
As far as the
yeah.
quantity.
yeah, it's a little easier
It's
to
hard to
digest.
digest last, yes.
Right, like,
Agreed.
we're not really gonna start from ground zero every single year. That was, remember last year, I zero-based everything. So, Okay, so for Kent County Middle School, of course, I just want to put a plug in, not just because there are principals here, because I would put a plug in for all of the schools, but I just want to anchor, the Kent County Middle School is one of the cornerstone pieces of our strategic plan, right? Because we know that the middle grades are really, when we look at our data, where we're working diligently to lift achievement. And so we have a good number of requests here, but I think not out of context for our data and our plan. So requesting an additional unified arts teacher, this would fundamentally, I believe, Mr. Buckle, be a PE teacher or, okay, PE and health.
That's
Right.
needed. I heard that at the community conversations.
Right. One additional content area teacher, and I think Mr. Buckle could use this, perhaps ELA or math. And then one student support specialist, did I say they're at SSC as a coach? They really work with intervention and work directly with students, supporting them. One additional assistant principal, this is when we get back to, just like the teacher specialist helps an elementary principal lean in there on instruction, an additional assistant principal would support, our current administration to be able to lean more deeply into calibrating the rigor of daily classroom instruction. Stipend or extra pay for extra duty for one after-school coordinator to serve as the administrator on duty as we are expanding after-school programs. I'm going to speak on your behalf, Mr. Buckle, because as a principal, I've been there and done this. So it is not uncommon for Mr. Buckle to work like a 12 to 14-hour day after day after day, because when you're there after school and you've got some athletic programs going, we're expanding Boys and Girls Club, we have all sorts of things that are expanding at the middle grades after school, which we want, right, for our students. So one, they're getting those enrichments, they're getting that extra tutoring, they're getting all of these opportunities, and we know they're supervised and safe at this age. It's really difficult for a principal to leave that building when all that's going on, right? Because it only takes a second for something to go a little sideways, and then you need an administrator on duty to be calling family members and things of that nature. And Mr. Buckle does it, but I also have personally walked in those shoes as a principal, and I understand that's not sustainable. That's not a sustainable model for us as a school system. So I'm putting in a request to have it add to the negotiated list of extra duty for extra pay, someone who will come in the afternoons and serve as that sort of growing administrator. This I see is also part of growing the bench of people who are developing that administrative muscle. This is a very common practice in other school systems to, there's people who are working on administration certifications. They need to get experience, and this gives them an opportunity to do it, and allows our administrators to, go home and pick up their children, or go home and, have dinner.
Question about
Get to bed
the,
at a decent time.
about the middle school. So let's say the budget happens to say, yes, we're going to do the one additional assistant principal. Could that assistant principal also step into that extra pay, extra duty job?
I think what we could look at that. I think this is where I see my HR director is like, I gotta get in there, Doc. So go ahead and give us negotiation.
Bargaining, currently in the administrative collective bargaining agreement, there are no extra pay for duty stipends. That is the only unit that has something like that is our teachers association. But, are there creative things that could be discussed, like a staggered schedule or things like that? Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so it could be, again, like if we went with the assistant principal, it could be that we don't do the stipend, but that assistant principal, maybe their report time is 10 a.m. and they stay to 8 p.m. or something like that, where they're,
It's still a 10-hour day.
well, okay, but, my point
Yeah, I
is
know.
they
I
they
got
can
your
flex
point.
their
Yeah,
time,
I
so
got
we've
you.
got all administrators there during
Yeah.
the height of the day, during lunch duties and things like that, dismissal, and then we can peel off, so we've got an early shift or, later shift.
I'm looking at the ongoing cost, the 10-month secretary position. Is there just one secretary at the middle school?
No, we do have two positions, and this is where I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hushin to provide you more of the details
Okay.
between the two that we
Make it a
have.
12 instead of a
Yeah,
10.
so right now in the middle school front office, there are two secretaries. One who works at the security festival. who
That's
is-
Miss Jones.
I'm trying not to.
Okay, sorry, but yeah, okay, yeah.
Which is, that position is 12 months.
Hmm.
The true school-based finance secretary, which really what the need is a 10-month position right now. And then in addition, there is a secretary in the school counseling office that is only 10 months, that is also, challenging with the transferring of student files and
Enrollment.
records. So, in between either one of those roles, having an additional 12-month person, there could be an additional resource for Mr. Bucket to handle ordering the finances, all the student records. Please feel free to chime in, Mr. Bucket, but I think that's it, right? Yeah. So that would be a great deal of.
How many secretaries are there at the high school, and are any of them 12-month, 10-month? What's, okay.
So there is, right now, there's 4 12-month.
Really?
And
Okay.
You have 2 up in the front office right
Mhm.
now. You have our school finance, which is 12 months. You have our school counselor secretary, which is 12 months, and then our attendance secretary is 10 months.
The person, without a name, but the person that, when you come in to check at the vestibule, are they a 10-monther?
They are 12 months.
They are. So what do they do?
Extra duties assigned.
I was going to think during the summer when there really isn't anybody
Right, and
really coming in.
they could be tasked to support summer programming.
Okay.
One of the things I'll just offer, in most school systems, what you have at schools, especially middle and high schools, you typically always have at least one 12-month position. At middle and high schools, you typically also have a 12-month guidance secretary, because there is a great, people don't realize, people think when during the summer,
Yeah,
nothing
but they've got
happens.
schedules and all that other
Yeah.
things to work on, don't they?
Exactly, and summertime enrollments, right? We do get people who come in on any random day in the summertime to enroll in the school system, transfer records, or unenroll, right? Like, if a lot of times families will wait to move when it's in between school years. And so there's way more happening in the summer than people realize. It's not exciting because you don't see children in the building, but that work still has to go on and has to be done accurately. you know.
Question, well, it could be a statement and a question. Like, for me, for instance, I see the unified arts teacher as a need. I definitely see the additional assistant principal as a need, and even converting that 10-month just to a 12-month as a need. Should I look at this with the fluctuation of us getting more students now because of our pre-K programming? Was it 3-year? Am I saying it wrong?
No, pre-K
Pre-K
three.
programming. Looking for us to make sure we build on the middle school, should my thought process be alluding to assuming we're gonna have a new middle school? Or, not to make this the topic of, you know what I mean, but like, if we're growing the way we think we're growing, or we can prove we're growing with data, a lot of these are essential with growth with the new middle school and the probably 60 to 40 new kids we're gonna have next year. So in my mind, I'm just trying to prep my thought process for
Sure.
future.
Yeah. Well, I certainly would say, aside from the physical building, the intention is to have a robust school system that's growing, right? And our enrollment holistically is growing. And so I think that, yes, we should be thinking about not just our immediate needs, but like the building process, right?
Yeah.
So it may be, for example, perhaps in this year's budget, we give the unified, and I'm just saying this hypothetically, friends, whoever's listening, maybe we are able to afford added unified arts teacher, because we know those class sizes are really large right now, because our principal works hard to make sure that the content areas are a little smaller, right? Maybe we're able to do that. And the extra duty stipend and the 12, we may not be, I guess what I'm trying to get is, we may not be able to do all of these requests
course
this
not.
year,
Of course
but
not.
maybe we can do certain ones this year and then try to come back to that list next year, which he may have additional requests next year. But that is the idea here, is that, every year we're looking to build a stronger and stronger school system.
But when it comes to conversions, those have to be determined before the start of the next fiscal year, is that correct?
Yes, like in the converting the 10-month to 12-month.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's a financial cost of that, right?
Okay.
So it's whatever the cost of that position would be, prorated with 2 more months. Like if you were to prorate, what's that monthly, you would add just 2 more months of that on. So it's not like keeping the 10-month and then adding another full 12-month
Yeah.
position. It's really
Just
you're
making
adding the
from 10
amount
to
for
12.
two more months.
Right.
I don't want to put the principal on the spot, but does that 2 months really make that big a difference in the day-to-day operations for our middle school or education?
Feel free, Mr. Buckle, if you want to come up to the microphone and explain that.
Yeah, yes,
Sure.
yes.
That way you'll be able to speak more specifically to the example.
We're just talking about the second.
Yes. Mhm.
So, yeah, it does make a big difference. So we're down to one, we basically have one additional staff besides myself and Miss Melvin in the summer. And with all of the stuff that we're trying to get done and, just the creating new materials and things, that ties up the one secretary.
Yeah.
Anything that has to be done, financial purchases, either I'm doing this, or Mr. Kirby to do this, or whoever else, because I'll have a secretary to run it.
Okay.
Or Miss Manley sometimes gets roped in to help us. So I'm kind of relying on others in the district to do those purchasing through the summer. And there's a lot of stuff that has to be bought over the summer. So it really is
Yeah.
a huge burden.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Which would be-
without using names or position, depending which one of those secretaries you're talking about. Do you know which one of the secretaries would go from 10 to 12?
We would have to post it.
Okay. Okay,
What he
gotcha.
said.
Okay, I got you.
Proper HR procedure.
Back to, that, I don't have a question about middle school. When Mr. Queen was talking about our 3-year-old program, is it somewhere later in this presentation about, I don't know if we're planning on doing it for next year, expanding the 3-year-old program to Rock Hall and Galena?
We are, it is not part of this program because the startup money for that comes with a grant. So we
Okay.
would only do that if we received the grant from MSDE like we did this year. I do
But
believe
won't there be some costs for us that?
the grant
inherit-
covers all of that.
Transportation and everything?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, I was just thinking, okay,
Yeah, it's a total package. Now, keep in mind, that's the seed money to get it launched.
I know.
Yeah.
Knowing that as those students matriculate into our enrollment, that generates sustainability.
Okay, I got you, okay.
The high school. So again, you see here the request to preserve the instructional assistant for the CAP program. That was one that was on the list. 2 additional special education teachers. As students move grade level to grade level, at some point they move from middle school into high school in case caseloads shift as student groups move through the grade bands, and we get additional special education enrollment over the year. And we did see an uptick in the number of students. I think almost 30 additional students this year with special education services. Okay.
What, students receiving special education services? Okay, well, that number's never gonna go down probably. I mean, historically, isn't that one of the areas that everywhere is seeing an increase? Okay,
Yeah.
That seems like a significant increase. Do we know why? I'm assuming we're giving more services to different types of needs, but why specifically that big a jump?
Well, and Dr. King, would you mind coming up? Oh, I'm sorry. Just, it's a great discussion around how, I think you're right, as she's walking up, I'll just say, we do see across the state and the nation, more students identified for services. And it's, special education continues to be an area of expansion nationally.
So one thing that we saw different this year than we've seen over the past is that we had an increase in students that moved to Kent County. After a lot of talk with our community agencies, some of our families moved here from Wilmington, New York, Pennsylvania, due to the Section 8 housing vouchers that opened up in Kent County. I don't know how many families took advantage of that, but we did see a large increase of students who moved here in the beginning of the year that were not originally accounted for or that we were planning for. What we also saw was during COVID, we saw a drop in the number of referrals that were made, especially for our infants and toddlers, early childhood population, because these children weren't in childcare settings or they were home with grandparents and their needs weren't necessarily being picked up on. They also were not necessarily going to their pediatricians on a regular basis. So when they came into school for pre-K, we saw an increase. However, our infants and toddlers program has also increased,
Yes.
which then when they transfer at 4 to school, they are students who are receiving services through an IEP.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
King.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so they're requesting 2 additional special education teachers, an additional biology teacher and chemistry teacher, and then an additional physical education teacher. Again, with last year's reductions in staff, you'll see, all the principals naturally are working to,
Recoup some of those losses?
well, right, preserve what we were, were on that list of 16, but then also, as they've shifted staffing around based on certifications and licensures, they've identified what are the gaps now, right? What are the gaps that we're looking at? We are fortunate that one of our retired teachers still comes back and teaches for us, and but we still see that we have some science needs. And then again, go ahead.
Just to also highlight that, just so it's clear, we've made reference to, trying to restore the 16 support, but currently at Kent County High School, there are 2 special ed IAs that we have not filled. They're not on the screen right now, but they are part of that plan to restore those positions.
Is it okay if I move on?
Yes.
Okay. Special Education Department, we see that our department is looking to support the request of 2 additional special education teachers at Kent County High School. So you see our departments and principals in most instances are very much aligned. To fill 1 school psychologist position, 1 SLP, we've been filling these services really with contracted services.
gonna
And we
say,
would
aren't we-
like to, we have
we-
contracted
But
services.
isn't one of the reasons we're contracting is because we haven't been able to get somebody in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's an example of last year with that severe cutback, we had been carrying the position and the contract because we couldn't fill it, right? And so I eliminated that, but we'd like to still try to get our own in-house people so that we don't have to contract.
Question, what does the school psychologist actually do for duties and perform during on the school day?
It's educational assessment is primarily, and I don't know, Dr. Keene, if you'd like to speak to, it's
For like
different
the
than
IEPs or
therapeutic support.
Would they be school-based or would they be out of the central
It
office?
would be central and they would go to the
Okay.
schools because we
Okay.
can't afford to have 1 per school.
No, I get it, but
Yeah.
I just
lots
thought
of-
I better
lots of-
ask.
Yep, no, I'm glad that you did. Most
Okay.
school systems do have them as part of the central team, and then they're deployed depending upon case,
The need
like
at
the
schools.
need. Mhm.
Okay.
Currently, we have 1 school psychologist, and she serves primarily our 3 elementary schools. She primarily does the educational assessments for the cognitive behavior raters. She does some FBAs. She also does
What's an
some
FBA?
functional behavior assessments.
Okay.
So she also will do some counseling for some of our students who may need some counseling that our social workers cannot provide that because we do not contract that out to our virtual school psychologist. Our virtual school psychologist primarily does the assessments and then the IEP meetings. She also does all of our IEP meetings and determines what assessments need to be authorized for eligibility purposes, continued eligibility, and any concerns that a teacher may have for a student. She also works with our student support teams to make sure that they are putting the right interventions in and looking at their learning profile to meet their individual needs as well.
And this one person does that for all 3 schools?
She's doing it right now for all 5 schools,
Wow.
all 5. And then we
So not
have,
just elementary, all 5.
and then we have a virtual psychologist, school psychologist, who is doing the assessments for primarily the secondary school. However, not all students can be assessed virtually, depending on their disability and their communication styles.
It's also that it ties up additional personnel if they have to
Yes.
facilitate those
So-
assessments, so it has a trickle-down effect as well.
Right, so it also affects our office because that means that somebody from my office will usually accompany the child who is being virtually evaluated because they need a facilitator there as well. So we have used our, this year we've used primarily our IEP facilitators to help with that on the day that they were originally designed to be at central office to provide some administrative support. They have not been able to do that because they have been doing these virtual assessments. The same with speech. Our speech language pathologist who is virtual, you also need somebody there to facilitate those groups because you can't send 2 fifth graders or 6th graders or middle school students in for a speech language therapy session without another person there to make sure that they are engaged and that they are paying attention.
One last question for you. How closely is the collaboration between the psychologist and the special ed department? Is there any overlap in the work?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of collaboration. So we have at least weekly meetings where we're talking about what is going on. She reviews the evaluations, looks at the educational evaluations. Our educational evaluations are completed by our special education teachers. So some districts will have an educational diagnostician that does all the assessments here in Kent County. Our school psychologists will primarily do the cognitive behavior raters, social emotional, autism raters, things like that, where our special educators do all of the educational assessments to determine eligibility for special education.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Questions for you, Dr. McComas? These 2 positions that she just spoke of, they're currently contracted right now, correct?
The speech, I know the speech language pathologist is.
And we trying to make sure we get them in-house. Okay.
But I feel like it's a catch-22 because I feel like the reason we've contracted is because we couldn't get somebody to be in-house. So how are we going to flip that narrative?
Right, well, here's the deal.
What is the deal?
The deal is, it is hard to find people with these credentials.
Right.
There is a shortage of this expertise,
I get
just
that.
like there is a shortage of a lot of, there's not enough special educators, so it is difficult to get them. But we won't get them if we don't have a position to offer them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, as we move forward, if we aren't able to find a qualified person who's willing to move here to Kent County, or lives within commuting distance to Kent County, then we use part of that salary then to pay the contract.
Okay.
Right? So, but we won't, last year I did cut the positions because that was all part of our trying to make that budget
Tightening the
work.
belt, yeah.
But there's no hope of trying to hire a person to be our in-person full-time if we don't even have it budgeted,
Okay.
if that makes sense, so.
We have had a pool open, and
Yes.
Dr. Keene has been in contact.
We've got some.
We do have some file
For what, the language pathologist or the school psychologist?
For both.
Okay, okay,
See, we need this info.
okay.
So thank you.
We have been we have been conducting the interviews, and yes, we do have some candidates that we're hoping that they will come.
Okay.
But they do they understand that right now it's a request and not a, yeah,
Well,
it's,
That's why they're in the pool.
okay, that's what a pool means? Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
So last year we had 3 in-person speech and 1 virtual. All 3, our 3 in-person speech positions were all part-time positions, meaning that they did not work the full 40-hour week. They worked less than 29 hours. Our virtual speech worked 1 day a week last year. This year, we have 2 in-person speech due to not being able to fill the 3rd position. And that person, or that position, both of those positions are 29 hours or less a week because they are considered part-time employees. And then our virtual speech pathologist, we did have to increase to 2 days a week. And that is because we had, with our increase in children that came, we have 102 students right now receiving speech language therapy services. And that's quite a bit.
And not to put you on the spot, with more kids coming in with the increase, you see this as, not to put you on the spot, an immediate need to be successful in delivering what we need to deliver to the school and community population.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like the high school alone, I will just talk about projected numbers next year. It is projected that we will have 92 children receiving special education in that building alone. Currently, we have.
Which is almost 20%, because the enrollment's
Correct.
right a little under 500, I think.
So we have projected of 92, there are only 4 special educators. Our special educators at the high school are monitoring around 100 goals per teacher, which means, I mean, that's pretty extensive because Maryland has enacted a new goal this year. It's called the Narrowing the Gap goal. So if you are 2 years below level in your IEP, you must have a grade level aligned IEP, and you must now have a Narrowing the Gap goal, which is basically the goal to work on those skills that will get you to grade level. But it's not just for one subject. That's reading, writing, and or math. Our students on the alternative standards now must have a minimum of those 6 goals, plus all of their adaptive goals, plus their communication goals, plus their motor goals if they have that. So some of our children who are in our self-contained settings who are working on alternative standards will have an IEP with 15 goals. So that's quite a bit for a teacher who has a caseload. You might think she only has a caseload of 6, 7 children, but when you times
They're
that
very
by
involved
that number of
caseloads.
goals, that's a lot of monitoring for a special educator, and that's why I'm advocating that we need more at the high school specifically.
Okay.
Thank you for the additional information.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Keen. Teaching and learning, I'm sorry, this is the text is tight here. One additional coordinator to support multilingual learners and the multi-tiered systems of academic support. One additional position to support early childhood, which, as we have already mentioned tonight, is expanding and continues to expand. One additional position to serve as a local accountability coordinator, state testing management and reporting. The LAC is something that every school system must have somebody to serve as the LAC. It is an extensive and rather grueling job to do. When you think about the extensive amount of testing that we do from the beginning of the year all the way through, it's really a full-time job in and of itself. We currently have it as an additional duty for one of their positions that also oversees science. And I will tell you, our instructional piece of science gets the short end of the stick because the demands of the LAC is so intense. And let me assure you, or employee who serves in that would much rather spend their time in, really helping to move science instruction as opposed to working with all the state pieces to testing. But so this is, again, to your point earlier, Mr. Queen, if not now, at some point in time, because it just continues to grow. And I just want to add that we know our state superintendent has shifted. We will have learning plans for reading and learning plans for math. All of which will need to be monitored and communicated. So the demands on the local accountability coordinator are not lessening, they are increasing. So I just want to make clear that while people would say, well, you got it covered now, you don't need that, we're paying a price for that, and that price is instruction.
Yeah.
And so at some point, I would recommend that we consider that. 1.5 additional music teachers. Last year, we struggled to find the music teachers. The fine arts are important, right? They're not a nice to have. They are important for brain development. There's a great deal of evidence, especially with music and math capability. It really helps develop math capability. So we would like to continue to look for those music teachers.
Why do we struggle to find?
It's finding certified people.
Certified.
Again, there's that's national teacher shortage is real. And when you get into specialized areas, whether that's special education, music, Spanish, it's even more challenging to find people with those expertise. People are not going into the profession of education like they did decades ago.
One of the I can chime in too, but one of the positions was split between our two schools that are geographically
Furthest apart, yeah.
and that has been a position where the retention of that position, no matter who is in that role, has been a struggle for 7, 8, maybe
Is-
10 years now.
Well, I do know that at one point, I don't know if it changed this year, the music teacher or the whatever the correct title is at the high school, at one point they were also at least one of our elementary schools. Are they now just strictly at the high school? Because that caseload of what that teacher does every day, you talk about somebody putting in the extra hours. I mean, it's like 8 or 9 o'clock at
That's right.
night. And it's like basically doing two jobs.
Two jobs.
So, okay.
Right. This is where the additional 1.5 would come in.
Okay, good.
That
Okay.
0.5 really helps offset that because you're exactly right. That teacher is doing the job of two
Right,
teachers.
okay.
And does it with passion and commitment and without complaint, and we're grateful. But it's, at some point, that's
gotta
not
wear you
appropriate.
down.
It's not appropriate in the long run.
With forward thinking, knowing everything that we just discussed, pointed out, if this were to be granted, the 1.0 FTE would be split between Molina and Barnett. And we talked to the principals last year about rather than splitting days, splitting the weeks up,
So they'd spend a whole week at one school and then the next week?
Or they're at, one school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Okay, yeah.
the other Thursday, Friday, and then allowing the high school band,
Music director, or whatever the title is. Yeah,
band
yeah, yeah.
director, jack of all trades to
Right.
be solely dedicated.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, yeah. I'm looking at the top position, the additional coordinator position for multilingual learners. That would be different than adding an ESOL teacher, right? I mean, I feel like the
It is.
number of students who English is not their family language is, I mean, and there aren't enough of, we know we haven't been able to get ESOL teachers. So what would the coordinator do that would be better or more or different from getting another teacher?
Yeah, and I'll ask Ms. Giacomelli to come up and expand. So there is more reporting related to our multilingual learners than people realize. One of the things I will bring forward, because I am looking at doing some reorganization to our central team, I'll bring forward the amount of reporting and the amount of the number of reports that are due, both to MSDE and to the AIB for the blueprint people, and reporting due to federal
No, I
grants.
totally
and
get
federal
that, and that's
programs.
one of the things I don't think the public understands is even though we're a small school system, we have to do the same paperwork that somebody in Baltimore City has to do, except there's a bunch of people that do that. We got one person doing all of it for us. I get
Right,
that.
right,
Yeah.
and so again, the trade-off and those things are non-negotiable, those things must happen.
Yeah.
The trade-off is instruction,
Yeah.
right? So this is one of the areas, so I'll let you go ahead and talk more
I think
about
you
this.
hit the nail on the head, more or less. Right now, we have that position at the middle school, and it was formerly a district position through a grant. So we were able to have a central person helping us with the multilingual learners. That is now continuing. We have someone who's at the middle school serving in that role, but also willingly taking a part of their day to check in on the other multilingual learner teachers in terms of professional development. That's a big responsibility that we are missing right now, the time that it takes to really train the others. So we have Ms. Swayze, and I can say her name
Yeah.
because she's been with us for a while, and she takes it upon herself to go above and beyond to still support in addition to the role that she's playing at the middle school. She's passionate about both, but it is just like you're describing with the music teacher, something's got to give.
Yeah.
I mean, she just can't continue to try to do
Good
both.
quality people.
Yeah, I know, I mean, I'm being greedy for a second. I totally understand, and I'm going to probably be just more dismissive than I mean to be, but I totally understand the part about all the documentation and paperwork that has to be done. I'm also just saying, I feel badly, which is such a weak word, but for our students who need the actual support in the instruction when English is not the family language. And I don't know what we do about that.
Well, I would like to just jump in and add to reassure you that,
I know I'm not ignoring them, but
no,
you know.
right, but we did last year expand the number of ESOL
Okay.
teachers and resources directly at the building level.
Okay.
So for
But I know it's
example,
hard to get those people.
it is hard to get. It is, again, another,
for
those,
ESOL
the more expertise you need, the harder it is to find people in education today. But we were able to, last year, we expanded the number of ESOL teachers coming into this year. So despite that deficit last year, we did prioritize
Is
that
there-
as part of
So
the.
how many are there and where are they?
So we have the full-time multilingual teacher at Garnett Elementary School.
Okay.
We have Cassie Swayze, who's doing a tiny percent of the district.
Yeah.
Probably much more than what's on paper, because she does it outside
own
of the
time,
day,
yeah.
right? But she also serves students regularly at Kent County Middle School as well. We have Karen Saunders, who has stepped in
She's at the
full-time
middle
with her
school, right?
certification at the high school,
Okay.
yes.
Wasn't she at the middle school at one point?
Before we added
Okay.
additional
Yeah.
And then Tracy Kendall Parent, who has been with us
Yeah.
also for a number of years at
She's a
Galena
Galena.
Elementary
Well,
School.
I do know that it was I think it surprised people that obviously the upper part of the county, which is Galena, where there's a definite student population that meets that criteria, but Garnett's is a growing
They
multilingual
actually have
population.
every,
They're growing
the
fast.
same number as Galena
Yeah,
every
okay,
day.
yeah.
Now, we were, so we have 4 ESOL teachers at the schools. The Rock Hall, their caseload of multilingual, they had 1 student last year.
Okay.
So we, please know, I do
So we
prioritize the
basically have
buildings.
one for each school. Okay.
And so what we're really short on is that, that oversight,
Okay.
reporting, support, and professional development piece.
May I just say the professional development is something that you've heard Dr. McComas talk about before, that sheltered instruction. And in order for that to roll out next year, you have to have a leader that really takes the stand in helping the classroom teachers know how to best support the students when they don't have someone in there with them.
Yeah.
So that's the training that they will be getting from that district level.
Right. It's often, if you hear the expression SIOP, it's an acronym that stands for Sheltered Instructional Observational Protocol. What that professional development is, it's not for the ESOL teachers. They're highly skilled in it. It's for your general classroom teacher. So I'm a 10th grade world history teacher, and I have 7 students in my 3rd period who English is not their family language. How do I support them? Because of those 7, some may have been here since they were in 2nd grade and have a higher level of proficiency, where you may have a newcomer who just enrolled and they just came to the country and they have no English, right? So you have to have that repertoire to work across their levels of English proficiency. World history is one thing, it's not a stated tested area, but if you're teaching algebra or English 10 or
Yeah.
one of those areas, it's even more important that our general classroom teachers really have that skill set and they have that ESOL teacher to confer with on how do I make sure that I'm meeting this wide array of needs in a rapid amount of time for testing purposes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me kind of, for instructional coaches, this is, again, you've heard me talk about, we have over the years really reduced our school system, and the price we have paid is instruction, and our data shows that. We can see where using the ESSER grants, we really poured in some changes in curriculum, and with those changes, we poured in some professional development, largely at the elementary levels. But the instruction at the secondary level is, in my view, where we most need the additional instructional support, because going in and giving high quality feedback around instruction to someone who's teaching Algebra 1 takes a different expertise than going in and giving high quality feedback to somebody who's teaching ELA. Right? There is general pedagogy that all of us as educators can provide coaching around, and then there's the rigor to the standard, right? My background is social studies, so I can go into a math classroom and I can tell you, is that classroom working or not? Can I tell you if that particular standard of teaching line of best fit, are they doing that in the best way, as a math teacher? That's where I need somebody who has that math degree and that expertise in math instruction to say, well, did you notice half the kids weren't with them? And it's because if they taught it in this way, this is a way that students tend to pick up the concept and are able to apply it. So that is, and I know that when we had grants, this is one of the challenges that happens in education. People see these positions as fluff. They see them as nice to have. And here I will go toe to toe with anyone on this. Here is how this works. And I use the comparison. If you've ever done a workout by yourself, think about the level of difficulty of doing a workout by yourself. Then think about what the level of workout is with a trainer, a personal trainer, or a group class instructor. Which one is more difficult? Which one's more rigorous? When you have that coach, the rigor is higher. People don't realize it, but we drift from the level of calibration that we need, right? When you work in isolation, you drift. And so that's why having these instructional positions are so important to keep our stamina and rigor where it needs to be, so that when kids go in and they take not just the state test, but SAT or any of these types of assessments, they are used to that level of demand and they're building that capacity. So I'll get off my high horse. I'm clearly very passionate.
I got a question related to that, and hopefully it's not, I'm not meant to embarrass anybody. I'm not meant to embarrass our school system, but I do know there was a time not so long ago, and I don't know if it's still the case, where we had because of funding cuts and difficulty filling positions, we would have a teacher who was not teaching in their content area. So I'm wondering, maybe that's ancient history for us now, but I'm just saying, if that's still the case, that's another reason why you need these instructional coaches.
Yes. Well, I think, and I don't know our number offhand that are teaching outside their level of their area of certification. I don't know, Mr. Hutchin.
It's more common up to high school.
Okay.
Last year, staffing and budgetary challenges certainly attributed to that, where probably, more so than it's ever been in more recent times. But I will add, we have seen an increase in non-traditionally prepared educators.
Right.
Maybe an expert in a content area,
Yeah.
but don't have the, instructional pedagogy
Yeah.
and
Okay.
the typical preparation that someone who goes to a four-year college program has. And that's where that support that works as well.
Right. Oftentimes you'll hear us talk about conditionally certified teachers, right? So they have a degree, maybe they have a degree in business, and they've decided they want to become a,
But
special ed
Sometimes
teacher.
that does not work out.
It's about what I have seen in the course of 30 years. career changers, it's about a 50-50% chance of it being a successful second career, because people underestimate the demand of behavior management, and they underestimate the demand of planning and grading, right? Most people think teaching is what they experience as a kid. I show up, I do what the teacher asks, I go home, I do my homework, and that's that. There is extensive amount of work that goes behind the scenes to make that go smoothly and rigorously. And so, again, when we look at this is, I just ask that our board understand instructional support is not a nice to have. It is a required to have, unless we're willing to allow our achievement to continue to struggle.
I don't know why we would think that, because I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure we're all on the same wavelength here. That's our number one job, to
Right,
make
right,
sure
right.
kids get the best instruction possible.
Right,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate that. And forgive me, what you're seeing is 3 decades of people acting as if instruction just
Didn't matter?
happens.
Okay, yeah.
Instruction
It
just
helps you not
happens.
lose the increase in the gains you have, because let's say we're increasing in the secondary, I think it's 10th grade, we definitely are. It can be sustainable when we add that support, and then we don't have to keep lowering the bar, it just goes higher and higher and higher. So,
Right, right. And I'll say one last thing with this, and this is really for long term. Again, traditionally in most school systems, these positions ebb and flow with grants, right?
Yeah.
And that is one of the worst things that school systems do, is we cut ourselves off at the knees. One, because we send the message, this is a nice to have, not a need to have. And then 2, what happens is you get this like inconsistency. Again, think about, as an individual, are you going to work at, sometimes you work out with a trainer thinking, okay, I'm just going to do what they taught me to do. But you drift from that rigor without it. And then I'll go on, the Teaching and Learning Department supports the high school's request, of course, around biology and chemistry teacher, and the music curriculum that we have in place was brought in and funded through the Title IV grant. That we have to now move that because it's no longer really a supplement. It is our core music program. That is a subscription-based program, so that you have access to the sheet music and things of that nature. So we do need to move that off of the Title IV grant. I didn't put it in a one-time request because it's not like you buy a textbook one time.
Yeah.
It's an annual subscription to have access, but
So
that's
we're
not
moving it from Title IV into,
operating.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Do we have in the music department, is all the equipment up to date? I remember a couple of years ago it was bad and you replaced a lot of it. Is it?
Yeah. No requests have come to me this year. So one of the things that we had the team work on was an inventory and to identify equipment. Last year, I asked the team to identify equipment that was broken beyond repair and needed replacement, equipment that was broken and could be repaired, which I will say repairing musical instruments is very costly, more costly than you might think. And then any equipment that we didn't have that we needed to purchase. So
That's great, because it's a wonderful department and it was really in rough shape a couple of years ago.
yeah. Well, and I think I've been working on getting people within the organization that if you have a need, ask. Right? If you don't ask, I don't know, and then I don't even have the opportunity to try to figure it out for our students, So I do think we're moving the needle in terms of the culture of understanding we can provide for our students, and we will. And if we can't and need community partners, we will access them. And then one-time costs, we do need to update our curriculum resources for biology, chemistry, and physics. And it may be that we do this over multiple years, but those materials are very much in need of replacement.
Do we know how outdated they are?
I don't have the publication date, and I'm not sure. Do you happen to know?
Maybe like 1993, is it?
Of biology saying that we're still using the same textbooks they used to use.
I remember when we got them,
So that's at least over a decade.
12, 15 years.
Okay, 15 years then. I understand. So science has advanced in almost 20 years, so.
I'll say one thing about the books. My daughter was in middle school, I don't know, 15 years ago, and her name was in one of the textbooks, so some of those textbooks are old.
Yeah,
Let me ask this, because I remember when I first started, I used to say negligence when you look at the board members. How do we as a school system let books and curriculum go a decade or more without even visiting it in the annual budget and saying, hey, let's address this now? How can that go 15, 20 years
Yeah.
unchecked?
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of competing priorities, to be sincere. And also, when you think about here for Kent County, we've had decades of declining enrollment, right?
Yeah.
So every time your enrollment declines, you have less to work with, right? So then you have to decide, do I replace the English curriculum or do I replace, the world history curriculum, right? And then, so it's just a series of tough choices year upon year is how things get tabled. One of the things, I'll use myself as an example, a conversation of at least 20, maybe 25 years ago in a different school system. I was a history teacher, right? Our textbooks were old. I was asking our principal at the time to replace the textbook, and his belief was like, it's history, it hasn't changed, right? Well, that's not true. Like, we have all new presidents and things like that, like the textbooks were that old. But you also get those kinds of perceptions that play into it. Some of the systems and structures that we've been working to put in place that I have seen be effective in some of the other systems I've served in is like a calendar of rotation, right? So like on year one, you're looking at replacing the literacy curriculums, right? Then year two, maybe you're looking at the math curriculum. Year three, science. Year four, social studies. Year five, fine arts curriculum. So if you build that system and structure of cycle and review, you have an increased chance of making sure materials are up to date within reason. Another driver, Mr. Queen, that
Just to
could,
ask, is
yeah.
that something that the superintendent does, like procedurally?
Yes.
Okay, so that's nothing like the board has
No.
to determine at a policy level?
Nope, nope,
Okay.
no. And that's what I've just been working with the team around, some processes and procedures that, that's an operations, decision. I will just add one more thing. Oftentimes, things that drive what get priority are changes from MSDE. Right. So it just so happened right before the pandemic in like late 2018, 2019, the state board passed new COMAR regulations requiring school systems to go to highly rated evidence-based curriculums in math and ELA. Well, then that triggered a whole reboot for math and ELA for all school systems across the state. So you can have things like that maybe science was up that year, but then the state regulation jumped in front. So they're all the kind of things that go into that decision-making process. I'll move on. Student services. They would, and this kind of ties into the middle school, and I'm sorry I didn't add this to the middle school slide. They are advocating that the secretary at the middle school get 10 additional days during the summer. So they're not asking for it to become a 12-month position, but that we allocate enough funds to allow that secretary to come in and address enrollment, grade transfers for students who are unenrolling. And that kind of just gets back to that. There's a lot more that happens in the summer than people may realize.
Why 10 days? Why was that the specific request?
That's what Dr. Walker put forward. I know she has a family member she's caring for that she's not able to be here this evening, but I couldn't tell you exactly. I mean, that's 2 full weeks. Those days could be flexible, so it could be that the enrollment secretary comes in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or it could be that they come in a half day, Monday through Thursday, and break that time out. So it could be utilized in a couple of different flexible ways, but didn't feel that it was enough of a need to make it a 12-month, especially if we're able to get the other one converted to 12-month. One supervisor of student services or an additional PPW. So some of you have been on the board long enough to remember when there was. We currently have Dr. Walker is our director. At one point there was, I don't know if the title was director or whatever, and then there was a supervisor of or coordinator of student services. And so this is really a request to reinstate a position that I'm not sure how many years, 2 or 3.
2 years, it was the first round that we did, and Dr. Couch's second to last year, came back to 2023, I believe, where there were 11 and a half positions used. This will reduce part of attrition with new training.
So our current PPW does a lot of work with the schools, but also does a lot of work with the local judge dealing with attendance issues. So this would help address some of those broader services. IT is really not asking for people, but theirs falls into ongoing costs. We know the cost of doing business goes up every year. We have had equipment inflation of 16.5%. And I don't know, Mr. Poor, if you have anything you'd like to add to that, or if anybody has any questions for him on that.
I do have a question. At what grade do students get a device for the year? I mean, or up the upper level of elementary school, or?
No, so we provide devices, they're one-to-one in pre-K through 12, so
Really? But they
pre-K
Pre-K
doesn't,
don't take them home, do they?
right,
Okay.
and we
No,
don't
no, no, no,
necessarily,
I don't want
yeah.
people having the wrong
No, I know.
instructional idea.
right, we don't necessarily use them
Okay.
daily even.
Right,
It's
okay.
just provided if we had the shift instruction or something were to happen.
Think about that as like a class set.
Right.
Right, so
Oh,
they
yeah,
can be
okay.
pulled out, you might have 6 kids working on like a little practice activity while the teacher is pulling a group, and you've got some others doing paper work, you know, so it's used flexibly, think about it as a class set.
Do we
more so.
provide those one-on-one devices to our staff as well? Or do they have their own?
It depends on the classification of staff.
Let me rephrase that, teachers.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
teachers are one-to-one, yes.
Okay.
And with the inflation, should I understand that we're trying to catch up the 16.5%?
Yes, and this is just, the 16.5% is only for student devices. So this is just for the increase in cost of Chromebooks.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Maintenance and transportation, restore and preserve the custodial and maintenance positions that were on that list of 16. Increase substitute custodian allocation, because again, just like we need substitute teachers, we do have custodians who are out for, you know, perhaps medical procedures that we need to cover. A driver trainer, you know, getting bus drivers and keeping them is always a challenge, because the truth is drivers can go off and get a job with a trucking company or a commercial driver and make more than they can make with us. So that's just ongoing work there. Temperature, this is the temperature control system for 2 of our buildings to conserve energy and avoid the cost of heating and cooling the buildings when they're not in use. So for example, the high school, you know, if we're having a weekend where there's no, I don't know, wrestling match or tournament or things like that, you think about that square footage, making sure that we are reducing that temperature just like you would do at your home to save energy cost. These 2 control systems are at the point where they need replacement. Yes, sir.
What is the cost to do all that?
The 2 temperature control systems is approximately $250,000
For each or total?
in total.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yep.
How many thermostats, or what do you want to call, are in the high school, for example, in these rooms you want to control?
Well, this would be the one for the entire building, and I don't know, Mr. Kirby, if you want to explain
The
more.
reason I ask is 250,000 is a lot of money. Maybe, is there someone that every Friday could go and just turn them down, and every Monday turn them up? I mean, it's the thought.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as like a home thermostat basically, because there's a computer system that attached to all these thermostats. And basically the computer system is really what's outdated. So right now we can't upgrade this computer system because it's quite literally up 40 years old. So like when power goes out and things of that nature, when it comes back on, we have to reset that computer because it thinks that it's 1990 something every time. So essentially it's, you know, it's not as, you know, as simple as like thermostat control. It is the computer system and software associated with it.
And maybe some of the parts don't even exist anymore. I know that's going to be the problem at the former Wharton Elementary School with the boiler or whatever.
Yeah, the boiler.
2026, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's things where we can manually go into these rooms and change temperatures, but that involves one of the maintenance and operations staff.
Damn.
Literally climbing into the ceiling to manually adjust these little devices inside of, above the cell.
I know,
There's not individual controllers in the rooms, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So in the big gym, there's no way to control the heat in there, it's up in the ceiling?
We can control it with the computer to a certain extent. Not to the extent that we would like to in every single room in the building. That's what this-
And I would just offer, we definitely do not want individual classrooms to be able to control their temperature because our cost, I guarantee you, would just go out the door, or out the window, I guess is the expression.
Question? No.
Yeah.
Were you gonna
No,
say?
it's,
Refresh my memory on how many positions we had to reduce for the custodians. 'Cause I have heard complaints about
Right.
the lack of it.
we have,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
So the custodians were kind of an ongoing, strategic form of attrition last year. We knew we had some retirements that were coming after July 1.
Yeah.
So we had one unfilled vacancy that, was essentially cut, that was at Kent County Middle School last year. And then after the budget was approved and we started FY '26 July 1, we had one custodial retirement up at Galena. October 1st, we had one at Garnett.
Garnett.
And then we had one up at the high school November 1st of this year. So there were 3. So right now, we have rebalanced at Kent County Middle School and Garnett. And then we have one that needs to be restored up at Galena, and then one that will have to be restored.
And I will say, I think last year, prior to all that, we have at least one custodian who was out for a good bit for like medical reasons as well. So that has been an ongoing challenge for us. And then one school bus is an additional, to add an additional school bus for our routes,
do we have a bus that's getting ready to sunset or whatever you call it? I mean, what are they good for? 15 years? What is the year? Okay. Do we have somebody that's getting ready to retire? I mean,
Yeah,
the
well,
bus is
because-
getting ready to be
Yeah.
retired.
Increased students, like what's the reason for the bus?
Yeah, this would be essentially replacing one of our special needs buses.
Okay.
It's getting close to its useful life. So this won't be a brand new bus, this will also be essentially a used bus. That was exactly for a special needs to replace one.
Okay.
Okay. Positions for preservation, this is just sort of holistic. We talked a lot about the positions that were on the reduction in force list. And then in addition to that, we had a number of grant positions that were funded this year on grants that we knew would be going away at the end of this year. So 4 of our 5 social workers, 3 lead teachers, and then 2 student support coaches. As you know, our social workers do invaluable work.
I was gonna say, I don't know how we could do without them.
Our lead teachers are, I would offer that, I know I've spoken extensively about the need to support instruction, right? If we keep the lead teachers and that satisfies that request, or begins to build the infrastructure to satisfy the request around instructional supports. One of the challenges with lead teachers is the blueprint requires certain credentials to be lead teacher. So you have to be nationally board certified. Then you have to apply to be the lead teacher. The lead teacher teaches 50% of the time, and then the other 50% of the time is when they can go and support larger instructional issues. We have an urgent need around instructional coaching with math and literacy. We may have a lead teacher who their certification may not be math, or it may not be literacy. They may be a nationally board certified teacher in, I'll use social studies since I'm a social studies teacher. So that's one of the challenges with this model and blueprint is yes, this idea of lead teachers can be excellent when you've got lead teachers with the right expertise.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are one of the school systems that is piloting the lead teachers. We are ahead of other school systems in this regard. I personally have been working with our lead teachers. Galena Elementary, this is the second year of having a lead teacher, and they can attest very strongly to her impact on leading professional development with her peers. The teachers are really see her as having high credibility because she's a teacher within the building, also teaching students. So we're seeing a depth of impact around instruction at Galena with the lead teacher there. Our middle school and our high school, this is their first year with lead teachers. There is variability in how we're leveraging them. And so that's still an area that we're developing. Just this morning, I opened my day was an hour meeting with the lead teacher was facilitating around literacy 9th and 10th grade. We were looking at students by name, by need, and identifying action plans with the literacy teachers, and that data was all organized and set up, and those plans were mapped. You know, our action plans for each of those students are mapped out, and that lead teacher is really helping us with that. They have, because we're piloting this, they have allowed us a little bit of flexibility, you know, because schedules at elementary schools and high schools and middle schools are all different types of schedules. So with our high school lead teacher, she is teaching less than 50%, which they were willing to allow us to experiment with. The AIB was willing to let us experiment with.
Because we're piloting. Okay.
Because we're piloting, right? So they're trying to learn from the things that we're trying to do. So I just want everyone to understand that we could begin working on that request around instructional coaches by keeping the lead teachers, right? It's not both and. They could dovetail into meeting that need around instructional coaching.
Will they still have to go by that 50-50?
As long as they're in the lead teacher as set forward from the blueprint, yes.
Just chime
Yeah.
in, and I'm looking at.
Oh, Tom's here,
order
yeah.
If he wants to chime in too, but I believe there was updated guidance sent out by the AIB and MSDE that is going to extend the pilot through 2027, 2028 school year, where every school is going to have a pilot level for lead teacher. And in this pilot, with us having 3, yes, the minimum requirement is that they teach 50% of the time, but in other schools where we have this happening, they don't have to teach 50%. So the Dr. McComas' example of the high school, it's more of a 75-25 split. I think it's fair to say that the state is really extending this pilot and having every school system do it to see what truly is the best model. Because I think what was intended at first when the blueprint was first written was to stay with that 50-50 split.
Yeah.
And Mr. Porter, you're welcome to come up to a microphone to elaborate on anything that you feel would be beneficial for the board.
I don't have a question about that, but I have a question about the student support coaches. Is that instructional? Is that behavioral? Is that organizational? Does that come under Dr. Walker's? I mean,
The student support coaches are really academic
Okay.
support, and they come under the principal. So
okay, is it more of a, I don't want to minimize it, I can't think of another word to use other than like maybe tutors? I mean, what do they do?
If I could just clarify real quick, Dr.
Go ahead.
Thomas, because there are 2 very similar terms that we're throwing out here. Student support coach is for part-time 5-hour staff that we implemented during the LEAD grant. Some of our systems are still employing those type of employees through various grants. But what we're talking about here are the student support specialists that came out of the Stronger Connections grant. One at Kent County Middle School, one at Kent County High School. They're being used differently in each building, but under the scope of what that grant holds.
Is the scope academics?
Well, it's driven from a mental health grant.
Okay.
Like, you know, academic.
Yeah, behavior, there's a lot of stuff that falls under that. Okay,
Well,
I got
I will tell you, the two, I mean, if you remember, Mr. Queen, when we visited the RISE Council meeting,
Yes.
one of the professionals sitting at that table was the student support coach and
Yeah.
was there looking at both the academics as well as
Correct.
any, you know, like if we know a student is struggling academically because they need tutoring, that individual is there to help build out that plan and then do the follow-up checkup with that student, make sure they're getting to their tutoring.
it. Could be struggling for other reasons.
Right, right. So to the point, but I want to make sure that we're not missing, it is really, they are focused on academics.
Okay.
And I know at our middle school one was really instrumental in supporting us with leaning in on mathematics because of her expertise, where our lead teacher, our lead teacher there was teaching. Right, so it's an example of how it was complementary, and I will say, in both those instances, very much focused on academics.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Dr. McCombs, from your experience, like, is there farming programs to take lead teachers and turn them into exactly what we need within the school system instruction-wise? Is there anything?
There's really nothing to accelerate that, because the criteria to become a lead teacher is you have to be nationally board certified. So in traditional models, am I answering your question or no?
You are, go ahead,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I was going to say, traditionally in life before the blueprint legislation, the way school systems address these needs is a combination of things. So they might have, so I was a department chair at Aberdeen High School, right? And I carried a full load, but part of my responsibility of being a department chair was to mentor and coach the people in my department. So if we got a brand new teacher in, I made sure that my brand new teacher was good to go. I would go in and support them. I'd have somebody cover my class. I go in and do some modeling and mentoring. In some school systems, the department chair might only teach half the time, and the other half of the time be able to go in and do that instructional coaching. And then also in the more traditional models, you would have like the Office of Math would have helping teachers, or sometimes called resource teachers, sometimes called math specialists, and they would report to the central content person, but they would be deployed on a daily basis into classrooms to help, you know, typically they would focus on new teachers or new to the profession or conditionally certified teachers. So that's how we met that need in the traditional models. Under the blueprint legislation, anchored in the research that drove the blueprint, what they found in high-performing nations around the world is that instructional coaching need is met by somebody who is a teacher in that building, but who has a higher level of credential, like a higher level of expertise related to instruction. So they identified national board credential as that higher level of credential, and that these are, rather than them being assigned to a central person and going, you know, one day I'm at Galena, one day I'm at Garnett, that the blueprint is driving school systems towards a model where these instructional coaches really live in a school and they're part of that faculty. So I hope I'm answering. The strange thing is right now we're sort of like in this time frame where we sort of have a foot in the old model and like, you know, 2 toes in the new model,
Yeah.
because it's just not, the new model isn't built up enough. And because you have these criteria to do that, it's not like I can just say we're making a clean break, because you still have that need for support.
And let me follow up with a more simplified question.
Okay.
We need certified teachers.
Yes. Yes.
Now, do we have a farming system to create our own?
Oh, I see. Like a grow your own.
Yes,
Now
yes,
I
yes.
understand the question. Forgive me for answering the
No,
question.
no, but it still gave context to help me get to the
We
simplified.
do have grow your own programs where we can take, let's say somebody comes in and they don't have a degree, and where we can get them through coursework to become an instructional assistant, which is a professional credential.
Yeah, and that's some of the teachers
And
we
then-
gave you.
Yeah, and then we also have where we can grow instructional assistants to be fully certified teachers as well. So go ahead if you want to expand.
I'll just add that the East Shore Consortium 7 school systems have collaborated jointly on a multi-million-dollar grant through MSDP to bring more grow your own pathways to
Okay.
all of our staff. With, with approval of that grant, we will actually be able to offer more robust offerings and plans, and it's in partnership with Salisbury University.
Also, part of that kind of growing your own, another variation of that is the conditionally certified person, right? So you have a career changer who shows up and they think they want to become a teacher, and they have, right, it's a little bit more than maybe they thought. But, they may have a degree or a master's degree in an area of expertise. Like, we actually just hired someone who has a degree in science as a long-term sub for us, and they think they seem to be a good fit, and they have some background in nonprofit work working with young people. So that's an example of a conditionally certified teacher who I feel pretty confident that when we get that individual through their credentialing process with coursework and pedagogy, we're probably going to grow that person from being yeah. So, sorry, I'm starting to get tired. My words are beginning to fade out.
Hold on, let me do it. We good.
We're still, I know. All right. And that really concludes. So I'll just walk through. So as we unpacked all of these requests and the why behind each of these requests and how they fit in to the bigger picture, just to remind us that, our theory of action is if we truly invest in robust literacy and math instruction, built out in, STEM applications, right? So pathways where students are applying literacy and mathematics. And to me, STEAM includes the fine arts, that we're really going to be preparing our students. So we know that superior performance is our ultimate measurement, right? To drive achievement in literacy and math. And that is our core mission, as our board president said earlier, and we all acknowledge. And then, of course, when we look at holistically, right, when we start to pull back from just math and literacy, we acknowledge that our middle school is of paramount importance to us, because of it being the core academic preparedness as we move into more rigorous coursework at the high school, right? So we know that we are investing robustly in our middle school, both last year, despite the reductions that we had to make across the board, but also moving into this year and future years of our strategic plan.
I'm about to say, and it's strategically helping the increase in the pre-K to third grade that eventually 3 years from now will be our new middle school students.
Yep.
And that gives us a good enough space to prepare for them with 2 to 3 years, knowing they're coming in if we start taking care of the middle school and investing in it now.
I
Well,
will
remember,
say,
the middle school, when we build it, will be fifth graders.
yes, that's right.
Yes.
Fifth grade will be part of it. And I will say, if we, let me
That helps
kind of
anyways across.
just, yeah, and I'll point out one of our this year's fifth grade cohort, to the point of how important middle school is, as part of our holistic plan here. For anyone who, this is just a quick snapshot of our strategic plan. I just kind of pulled the key pieces. This year, we have been focusing very intently on these grade levels with literacy and mathematics, just to know how we're moving the mountain one scoop at a time, so to speak. Next year, we will lean in on these next grade levels with the idea that the professional coaching and support that we provide this year will be working to sustain that as we lean more heavily into these grade levels next year. And then the third year of the plan, you see. So if you were to chart that out, you would see pretty much all the grade levels are touched. 11th and 12th grade, you will see it starts to become a little different, because at that point they will have reached their college and career readiness threshold through a variety of ways the state identifies. And then this really talks about making sure that we are not forgetting things like fine arts and the applied areas in science. And of course, you saw us requesting new materials for
Quick question
science.
to your 3-year plan. I don't mean it the way it's going to sound, but I'm just going to say I have a problem with not seeing specific specific detail or attention paid to the 11th and 12th grade?
Because each of the 3 years has 9 and 10.
Right,
Because
I know, yeah.
what I've seen, living here for about 20 years now, being on the board, doing work in the community, we're not preparing kids for life skills, careers directly from 12th grade. So I would like to see, or at least hear, some focus on those 2 higher grades to see how we're equipping them for the real world. Like,
Yeah, and I did not put it on the slide, but if you go back and look at the full plan that's published on our website, you will see that's because 11th and 12th grade, and this really lines up with the concept of the blueprint, is that 11th and 12th graders, it's not that they don't have traditional math and English classes, they do. But at that point, they are out doing internships, dual enrollment, advanced placement coursework, right? So the nature of the last 2 years of high school are much more dynamic and following those career pathways. And it may be that they're in our CTE programs working on industry recognized credentials. So while I did not add a slide here to pull that out, if you look in their plan, you're going to see where we did highlight the number of students participating in dual enrollment with Washington College
yes,
and.
but that's not all students in 11th and 12th grade,
But they would be in their CTE programs if they're not doing that.
because they get that anyway. All right.
Because they have to have a pathway to graduate.
yeah.
So that's why that 11th and 12th. So I'm happy in our future presentations to make sure that I have a CCR slide.
I guess,
Yeah.
when I think about the emphasis on STEAM, I was surprised to not see a request related to theater at the high school level. I don't know if there's any hope for that.
Yeah, I can talk with our principal around that. I mean, because you're talking like a position,
Yeah.
like a full-time position. Yeah, that wasn't one of the ones that was brought forward to me, but, and it may be that, we invest in the music this year and then move to theater next year.
I mean, just,
So Dr. McComas, if the question was about theater.
Yep.
What has happened in the past at the high school is we had a position where there was a drama class taught by the health teacher who was kind of had both
Yeah.
certifications. With the addition of a phys ed teacher, it may create the openings for the health teacher to teach a drama class and also have a Bardic theater background. But that's a high school schedule.
Thank you. Thanks for knowing people's areas of certification like you do.
Doesn't that, I know exactly who you're talking about. Doesn't that teacher have a PhD? I mean, aren't they at a doctorate level now? Okay.
And to Dan's point, is it a way like we could see like maybe a spider web of trickle down, like how one position might get fulfilled, but it affects positively another position as you just explained? So that way when I look at the budget, if I pick these 2 instructional lead people for Garnett in the middle school, automatically these 3 voids open up due to that. Like I would like to kind of, I'm not saying I have to do it, but it would help me kind of
Right,
make
there's
my
second and
decisions
third
based
tier
on, yes.
bump ups that you might
Yes,
get from
yes.
that, right? Yeah, there's benefits from those strategic
Because
committees.
it'll help me look at it as a bird eye view and see the
Yeah.
big picture instead of focus on this one position for the elementary school, then focus on these key positions. If I can see how I can kind of trickle through the school system as a whole, that might help me, during budget time.
I will commit to trying to bring forward those secondary and tertiary benefits as what I propose.
Oh.
But you're absolutely right. It's a system at play, right? It's a system at play, and it's an example of how Mr. Hushin described earlier with the music, right? If we're able to find a certified music teacher, right, who then we can change the scheduling so that we're able to free up the music band director to just be full-time at the high school, right? Just by doing that. So I will keep that in mind with the proposal. And of course, our student demographics, just so you can see our breakdown. It's not that dramatically different than last year in terms of ethnic group makeup. Again, if you were to look at these pie charts compared to last year, you'll see some change, as I know Dr. Keene already talked about, the increase that we saw in students receiving special education IEP services. But you'll see, again, they're fairly comparable. We have relative stability compared to some other school systems that I've worked for. Here's our achievement on the last 3 years of the state assessment. And I was able to identify, where students entered, because they're really different stories in terms of what their educational experience has been. I want to point out that this year's fourth grade, let me get my story straight. The fourth grade that you see on this slide in the turquoise or the light blue they are in fifth grade this year, right? They will enter sixth grade next year. And so that's the group of students that their experience has been traditional. They've had no interruption. And so it's really important. And you look at their relative performance compared to other cohorts of students, it's going to be really important that our sixth grade teachers next year are ready to receive those students, right? Because they're coming.
With added rigor, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Yes,
prepared for
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Hence, when we layer on what grade levels we've been leaning into, part of why sixth grade has been such a focus this year is because this year's fifth grade, when they come next year, they're entering sixth grade at a higher level of readiness
Right,
than
yeah.
these previous groups have, and our teachers need to be ready for that, to meet
Yes,
that, and
agreed.
continue to push them forward.
Because, not to put teachers in a bad spot, there's sixth grade teachers at the middle school, we should be able to tell within 2 years exactly with the data on are they be able to teach a rigorous academic program for our students. And on top of that, you don't want the kids from fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, or going into sixth grade ready for academics, and then that teaching level shrink, because we get right back into the kind of the negative connotations we had about the middle school and behavior. So if we can just hit everything in a timely manner, I think it could be very well paying good dividends.
Right, and that's why those entry points are positioned strategically. So I'll just move on. So this is not new data. This is data that we've seen. You'll see this is pulled directly from the Maryland report card on the state website. Any of our viewers could go onto the state website, and it's a very interactive dashboard that you can look at a lot of different cross sections of data for literacy and mathematics. So again, this is not new, but I think it's important to anchor our data should be part of our conversation every time.
Agree.
And then generating momentum, right? So we have stakeholder input. We know the blueprint legislation is driving certain things. We spent a lot of time talking about the model around instructional support under the blueprint. We've looked at our student achievement. We've looked at AIR theory and AIR plan, all as we're thinking about this FY budget. So I guess I will just at this point open up the floor for any guidance, thoughts. I do have the note that, when I do bring our proposed budget forward next month, to be able to talk about sort of the, how are these selected, how is doing these things optimizing secondary and
Yes.
tertiary benefits.
When you come with the request from the schools, respectively, how many times do you all go to them with the request? Just once right before the budget, or is it something that you go to them quarterly to kind of ask? So you can get a feel on what they genuinely need instead of them just giving you the wish list. Are you checking throughout the year on what might?
Well, I'm in our schools a lot, and I have spent a tremendous amount of time at the middle school this year, and a significant amount of time at the high school. So I do make my own direct observations, and I'm in conversations throughout the year with our principals and our teachers around things. So there's that ongoing kind of pulse of input and feedback. We do send out a survey to get insight. The principals send us what they're thinking, but more importantly, there's a conversation that goes with that,
Yes.
right? So that I can understand, I could tell you that Mr. Buckle, when he said I need another content teacher, I'm thinking I will apply that towards literacy or math, because we've got some teachers who are teaching 2 grade levels, right? And it would allow us to, perhaps reduce class size, which our class size is not beyond reason. But people always prefer smaller class size if they can have it, and I'm good with that if it produces results, right? If we have smaller class size and it's yielding outcomes, that's one thing. But If we are not, then that's a different conversation. So, other thoughts, questions? Yes, sir.
I have a question. So during this whole meeting, about how many new positions are requested?
I don't have the total. I know that we would not have the funds to give everybody everything that they've requested in terms of positions.
But approximately?
I would have to go through and add. I know alone there was the 16 in the projected RIF, and then we have the ones from the grant. I mean,
The
I
reason
would-
I'm asking is
yeah.
I'd like to know, will you be able to get an approximate cost for all these new people that are coming on at the next, before you approve this? Will you have an idea of what all these new positions, like at the middle school? I mean,
Sure, yeah, I mean, obviously, I would take that into consideration. I will tell you right now, we certainly couldn't afford to do everything that everybody
understand.
requests. And so what I will do is I will bring forward a proposal around which ones do we support and which ones do maybe we not support this year and take into consideration for out years. Okay,
I'll just be honest, this was it's a lot less stressful than last year during budget time, so I don't have as many
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
because we kind of knew we would be in this position. Well, maybe not as up with all of the money lining up, but we knew we would be somewhere in this realm a year ago, so.
yeah. Last year was just the timing of those grants. I mean, there was a lot of, it was a lot of wrapping up of the turbulence of those pandemic years, right? The turbulence, and what I mean by that
And
is,
we also had to make up for the $15 million we'd lived on for 5 years on grants that
right,
was
And
gone.
exactly,
student
so
declining.
the student declining
It was a
with,
lot.
yeah, and then the grants. So there was just a lot of sort of tying up,
Superintendent
That-
getting her feet wet.
yep, there we go.
It was a lot.
So yeah, we are positioned much better this year, because we did do the hard work last year of right-sizing the organization and zero basing. And so we are positioned differently this year. I'm pleased to say enrollment is growing. You know, it's modest, but I think it's not inconsequential, so.
Agreed.
I'll just, go ahead, Alden.
I was just saying, that I don't think my thoughts and what I observe, are radical or like aren't in line with what all of these departments are requesting. But like, I'll just say at the high school, I don't think we have any shortage of teachers who really care about the kids. It's just that it's like I see in specific departments, they're just so overworked. Like they just, in any way we can support, whether it's getting a new teacher or getting new people to help teachers, just like alleviate some of the stress. Like I know specifically in the math department, we just have teachers who really care and really want to do and are trying to do everything they can, but anything that we can do people wise would just, I think, be so beneficial and help with teacher burnout and also with student instruction, because they both go hand in hand. So
Yeah, because
You know.
teacher instruction does suffer. Or instruction overall suffers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just want to sort of dovetail to support what she said, a couple of things. First of all the requests that have come in from each of the schools, almost all of them are related to instruction. There's
Yeah.
no, they're all needs, not wants, for the most part. Second of all, when I sat in on the community conversation that I went to, which was the first one, which was at the middle school, one of the, we were talking about staffing and stuff like that, and I was sitting at the table that Mr. Hushin was in charge of, and there was a teacher there. And similar to what Alden said, it wasn't so much that actually the teacher said they felt that they were compensated financially. They want more time. They want more help. They want to be able to do their job better, which really is more about resources than putting extra money in their pocket. So,
Yeah.
And even at the community conversations, I actually brought my family with me, and I was able to sit with Craig and Hutchinson at the table and to hear because she ain't gonna tell me but so much, because she gonna feel like I'm ignoring her, which I do sometimes, but that's not the point. She was telling them issues from a student point of view, and I could see their two brains just start going, so they start asking her questions about how is curriculum and instruction is affected. And I think she was explaining about the gym So when I saw the gym position up there, it immediately reminded me of the in-depth conversation that we had at the table based on my daughter giving them feedback. And I kind of saw them kind of figuring out, if this is taken care of, then we could do this, 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 this. And it made me say, okay, they even have a bigger approach or bird's eye view of looking at what we need and then understanding it from a student directly. So to see it in the budget based on a complaint I heard from my daughter and them actually kind of working through it, I think we're in a good space.
Well, I'm just looking at the kind of the last slide, or the next to last one, that has dollars and cents, just to show that, yeah, that one, we're really in a much different, much better spot. We've got
No, that's a fact.
1.5 million more to work with. Last year was dramatic, dramatic and traumatic, you know, so, yeah.
It was tough. So I think, again, I'll just say, last year was difficult, but we did the hard work that needed to be done, right? Which
Yeah.
we are feeling that today, right? We're here saying, okay, we have a little bit more to do
We can
with, so
breathe a
how
little
do we
bit.
make the most of this little bit more to do with, right?
Now, would it be safe to say we're not out the woods yet, though?
Well, I would say we need to continue to make wise decisions, right? We don't have money to throw away, but, nor should we, right? Nor should any school system have money to throw away. So, we're, I think, smartly positioned to take some good steps, right? We're, we want to run. We probably can't run yet on some of the things, but we can walk confidently. And I think that that's a good place considering where we were 12 months ago.
I mean, in
Yes,
terms
ma'am.
of performance, when I think about prioritization and who's needing the most support, I mean, we know that the middle school is
Probably top of the
in a
list.
process of becoming what it needs to be. And so, as compared, I mean, and we know that, I know the importance of an instructional assistant and what a difference that can make. And, and across the board, where there's needs, that, I would want to.
Support the instructional coaching.
But,
Are you saying that's where your priorities will lie?
yeah, when I think as a system where instructional assistants are needed, but when I think of like where teachers are needed, I mean, who's performing at
Right.
what level,
Right.
and like, and so
Where
that's
where we need maybe more support with a conditionally certified teacher as less experience compared to like a
right.
Right. And I appreciate, think about that, the instructional coaches support the teachers, those students support specialists / coaches support the students, right? So.
Well, I know just in some conversations you and I had, which is I think what Ms. McKenzie's saying is, we need it now, the instructional coaches in both math and English.
Yeah.
Especially math, the challenges the school faced this year, and we've done the best we can to sort of plug the holes in the dike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the things I've been really looking at math and having lots of conversations with Mr. Hushen, and, part of what has been our undoing in math is this rotation of teachers, right? One, not having truly credentialed, like people who are trained to be teachers in addition to mathematicians. And then, so in the field of math education, you end up with a lot of people who have a degree in math, but they know nothing about teaching, right?
Yeah.
And so it's often, as I said, in my career experience in 4 school systems, it's about a 50-50 shot that a career changer makes it in education, because it's not necessarily what they think it's going to be. And so that's been part of our problem in math, is not having stable, experienced, and credentialed teachers who are, in fact, experienced at teaching to high levels. And so that's one of the things, is we need to stabilize our math faculty at the middle grades.
Agreed.
And not just stabilize it, but make sure it's high quality on top of it. And that's where that coaching piece really comes in. I know our central math coordinator, Miss Boyce, has been, sleeves are way up, and she's there all the time, to the point that I think sometimes folks are like, can we get a breather? But no, we cannot get a breather because our data is urgent. We have students coming who we need to meet and push. So it is urgent and rather intense, I think, for some of our teachers right now.
Ms. Dorsey? You haven't said much. Any specific comments or questions? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, because right, like you said, we know we can't meet all the demand,
Yeah.
but I think instructional assistants in general across the system, to me, are a priority, or should be a priority.
No, I think it would be my top priority. The middle school and to your point.
And then,
instruction.
right, when I think about middle school and then high school,
Yeah.
as far as whatever
Right.
remains.
Configuration.
No,
Yeah,
I
That's
agree.
my thoughts.
And if you go back and look at our data, that's where our data shows, like here's our
Yes.
math data.
Like
Look at the
not-
difference between our elementary, and not that we don't have room to grow there, but you can just see
But there's a big
holistically.
difference when you get to like
Mm-hmm.
7th, 8th grade. And to Laura's point, not to prioritize, because they try to hold us to that when it comes time for us to actually go to the budget. But I do see the middle school as a priority. Anything that help instruction.
Mm-hmm.
But then also social workers, like I feel like sometimes they just glossed over. Because to your point about like fluff positions, people look at social workers as a fluff position sometimes. And I think
They're not
to kind of connect to that point, they connect to the community, they connect to the families a little better than maybe an instructional teacher. So those kind of things I kind of put at the top for sure.
I will add, just for anyone who is unclear about social workers, they are licensed clinical therapists.
Yes.
Different than school counselors. So school counselors are really there to do academic advising with
Yes.
students, support, and not that a school counselor can't do low-level, conflict mediation, but they are not licensed clinical therapists. And so I've, over the years in different places, often had to sort of explain what's the difference between a school psychologist, a social worker, a school counselor, and how they do serve different roles, but students need all of them in
Yes.
different ways. The social workers are so important because not only are they able to provide therapeutic services with their students, but they, to Mr. Queen's point, social workers connect with families, can do therapy with the whole family to help with, larger patterns of support. So they really do bring a whole different level of therapeutic support to students. And we know, while I do think students have always had a lot of needs, I think the pandemic put the spotlight on really how significant families need that type of support. And if they don't have insurance, they may not have access otherwise to. Yes, ma'am.
I will say that I do agree with what everyone's saying as far as the support
Okay.
and what's needed at the middle school.
Okay, thank you.
To help the children to continue to be successful between elementary and then when they get over, go over to the high school. Because a lot of times in the middle school, it's new, they've grown, they're kind of like feeling their, and they kind of fall off a little.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot. And I think if we could do more to address the areas that, where they need help and different things like that, and just to keep them on track, then I think they would be more successful from the elementary through the middle school, 7th and 8th grade,
Right.
all the way over, and then, have a good start in high school.
Yes.
A lot of times they just kind of get off track, and when they get
They
to high school,
flounder.
then it's another school
Right,
and
right,
and another level, and they're not ready.
right.
Not for the academics. They're ready for whatever they can do.
Right.
Keep doing. So, and then after the pandemic, like Joan was saying, Mr. Queen,
So great.
after that, a lot of intervention was needed, and and the ones that have been affected by the pandemic, a lot of them have had a hard time trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And then the school had a hard time trying to deal with them when they came back in.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask this question. I didn't, maybe because it was mentioned in positions and not specifically students with disability. So should I assume like the 2 additional requests for like special education teachers at the high school or in the special ed department, the psychologist or the speech pathologist, are those going specifically to kind of fit the mold for students with disability? Because the request didn't, when I look at the request, it didn't kind of speak to those students and those needs.
Right. It really is the way they're used, right? So our school psychologist, speech language pathologist, did I miss? They address that specific need related to their IEP services. And certainly, Dr. Keene, feel free to correct me or jump in. The special education teachers themselves, so like the high school requested, they would be teachers who support inclusion and case management. So,
Okay,
so
inclusion
yeah,
and
so
case
they
management.
blend in depending upon what their schedule is. So let's say I'm a special education teacher, one of the new ones added. You may be a math teacher, you may be an English teacher. I may co-teach with you and co-teach with you on a different period to make sure that when students are in your classroom, we've got instruction that meets their
Meets them where they are.
right, and the specifics of that IEP plan. So we're
All right. So
implementing services with.
I want to make sure I don't assume, but, because I'm thinking about IEP 504, that would be the school psychiatrist and the pathologist.
Yes, all that supports.
Okay.
that. Mhm. Yeah, so, yeah, and that lines up with when we look at our achievement. Now, this is literacy achievement by student group, so we see our students with disabilities and our multilingual learners.
And there was only requests for how many multilingual learners?
Well, the multilingual was,
coordinator,
it was
wasn't
a central
Yeah, okay, yeah.
coordination, because we prioritize in this current budget to make sure that schools had ESOL teachers. So
Yeah.
prior to last year, we did not have 4, I think we had, was it 2? I think we may have had just 2 and 2.5. And then for this year, we have 4. And Garnett has also a bilingual instructional assistant as well. We did just hire a bilingual bus driver too. We're very excited about that.
You know, it would be hard for me to prioritize one thing over another from what you shared. And I definitely understand the instruction is huge, but I try to look at our students,
Yeah.
the whole student, and the social worker, the school psychologist, and the speech pathologist. I put them on equal footing as a teacher.
I
I would
agree.
agree.
Agreed.
I would agree.
Because when you have students with, the services that they're providing are barriers to the academic piece, right? So if you don't address the barrier, they're not going to be able to get, I shouldn't say they're not going to be able to. It's going to be more difficult and less likely for them to be successful academically.
Yeah.
And we want to provide complete resources for the students.
Yeah.
So does that give you a little bit of?
It does. I appreciate everyone, your conversation, and certainly, if you have thoughts as you're driving home or whatever, feel free to let me know. I know I check in with each of you, depending upon your schedule.
So I'm
and
looking at
preference.
the where we go from here. So at our April meeting, you'll come back with a budget that's got dollars attached to things, right? Okay.
And a recommendation of where we spend those dollars.
Correct. Yeah, because right now we're looking at stuff in theory as opposed to practicality,
Yep.
and there are our own limitations
for dollars.
by money. So then April 27th will be a hearing on a public hearing, and then you'll come to us at May to approve the budget, and am I correct, the next day you'll go to the commissioners?
That is my intent
Yeah.
now. I will keep them abreast of where we are,
Yeah, but I mean, that's usually what it is. The day after you get your approval from the board, the superintendent heads to the commissioners. Alrighty. So next thing on the agenda, does anybody else have anything they want to say about this?
I do have a question. I'd like to talk a little bit about middle school. I know this is about the budget, but I got some lingering questions about what's going on with the middle school. Is it okay if I ask a few?
You can ask. It wasn't on the agenda, but sure.
Well, because, first of all, what is the deal with the computerized maintenance management system that got messed up? Who was in charge of that, and why didn't I
Well,
was thinking
okay,
of-
so, Mr. Rhodes, thank you, because I can feel your
I
frustration on
understand.
that. Yeah, and rather than, you don't need to get upset about it, I'm happy to address that.
All right.
Because I think there's people who, you know, are as equally frustrated. So, yeah, so we did not pass on our last maintenance
Yeah.
for the middle school. And that was a shock, that undid our eligibility to receive the additional 5% for maintenance assessment. And so there was a combination.
Something to do with the timing?
Well, it was a couple things. So originally, and this is where, Mr. Kirby, I'm going to ask you to help me be accurate in my accounting here. So if our middle school project had stayed on the original schedule, right? We had already been pre-approved in, what year was that? 25. We met the eligibility at that point, and everything was moving on schedule. Of course, we came out of that cycle as a combination of, one, not staying on schedule, and then two, most importantly, the change in the cost share formula. That triggered sort of like a reassessment of the whole thing. Last year, in the beginning of the school year, our middle school ended up on the assessment schedule again, which our prior understanding is that it would not be on the assessment schedule again, because it was already locked in, and if the project had stayed on schedule,
got the full
we knew
10.
that the school was moving to ultimately be, you know, knock down a new building built. But it ended up on the schedule at the beginning of the school year. They come and they inspect 3 schools each year. We don't know what schools they're going to inspect. And again, our prior understanding was that the middle school was not going to be on the schedule again, because it was a project that was moving towards replacement.
Yes.
And it was getting close to that point of, you know, putting shovels in the ground and so on. So nevertheless, it ended up on the schedule again. We did not pass. There was a combination of things happening at that time. And Mr. Rhodes, I was going to do a full report on this in our next our next board meeting.
I know, but I'm really
I know,
concerned about
I understand people don't want to wait. So I just want to be clear that I already had that on the schedule. And so there was a combination of things. We were upgrading the software with the reporting system. And so there was some problems with that. In addition, we found that there was some work orders that needed to be taken care of. And there were some identified challenges with our roof. I know Mr. Kirby spoke to the roof patching jobs that have been done. I think there was a fourth thing. What was the fourth? Yeah. Yeah, so the PM software and the CMS, which is the,
Which go hand in hand. Essentially the same software.
yeah.
Did you have a concurring system when you started this new system? Did you have a backup system to know that there was a problem, or did you just go right into the new system?
We, basically, the support was taken away from the old system, so we had no option.
You see, I'm a businessman. I wouldn't have let that happen. That's just me. I'm not trying to blame anyone, but that should have been done, because we would have caught this problem. I don't know who's in charge of.
Well, I'm ultimately in charge, Mr. Rhodes, and I'm sorry because I feel like people are acting like this
No, I'm
was.
acting like this because it really concerns me. It shouldn't have
Well,
happened.
well, you know what? It concerns me as well, and I truly am not pleased that that is the case, but it is the case at this point. And I think it's important that we not lose sight of the fact that the state did adjust its wealth formula to go from 50% to 75%. We are making out with more resource just by adjusting that cost share formula than if we had before, when we had it at 50-50 and had the 5% for this, which is about $3 million of the total project, and the 5% for our poverty and the pre-authorized. So at that point, we are really only looking at the state being able to cover about 67% of the project. Just by adjusting the cost formula, we're already at 75. And we do, fortunately, still are eligible for the other 5%. So we are right now at 80 to 20. Am I disappointed and frustrated about the $3 million for that? Absolutely. But what I'm not going to do is allow us to take our eyes off the case that we are already way far ahead of where we were otherwise. So, you know, I mean, it's one of those things that the longer things go on, things keep shifting around. You know, at some point, we have to accept where we are, right? And we are already millions of dollars ahead, even with that loss, than we were a year ago, than we were 6 months ago. And I have nothing but respect for Alex Zanaho, who, while I'm disappointed that we are no longer eligible for that, I am truly grateful for the fact that he did a monumental task and he adjusted that formula, which hasn't been done in decades.
Agreed.
So I just need to say that because I think people are trying to they're trying to distract the real accomplishment of
Agreed.
changing that formula. Am I frustrated and angry? You better believe I am. Am I digging into that? You better believe I am. But I can't change that. And I'm not going to let us lose sight of the true gains that we've made. And that's what I think some folks would have us do. So thank you, Mr. Rhodes, for the opportunity.
I have to disagree with a little bit of it, that's fine. I just think there are some really bad mistakes made here. That's my own opinion. And also, I brought the Kent County News. You came out and like basically said, hey, this is a done deal in this article 2 weeks ago in the Kent County News. Well, if you read it, the
Who are you
article,
talking to, Dr. McCarthy?
I'm talking to you.
I didn't say anything.
No, I didn't say, but there's a whole article. You're on the picture right here.
Oh, that's from the, but you
I know, but it
Basically.
I know, but it basically says the whole new, what I'm saying is, did you do your due diligence before this article came out? I just think that we're getting way, I'm a little upset about the whole thing.
No, I
don't want to say anymore. I just think we really screwed up. That's all.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was not interviewed for that article.
Well, someone put it in there. I don't know who did.
I wasn't quoted in that article. That photograph was taken at the rally back in September.
Correct. Well, whoever put the article in it didn't really look back and see what really happened. The due diligence wasn't done. That's all I'm saying. And it's just like in the, when you did your new plan for the, this new program you did, there wasn't a backup plan. That's the only thing I'm saying. You know, we've got to really hone in on this stuff. We've got to look good. We've got to look like we know what we're doing. And I just think there's some mess ups here. That's all. That's my opinion. That's all.
Well, Mr. Rhodes, I will own there was one mess up, not some, there was one mess up. I own that. Am I angry about it? Absolutely. But again, I fully own that. I fully own that. But I will tell you, I am at the same time not willing to allow people to say, we are not ahead. We are still ahead. Would I have liked that extra bump up? Absolutely. But you know what? We are still ahead.
You don't think we're like where we started 2 months ago?
No, we are not. We are not.
Can we have the two bump ups?
We have one of them, and we are already 80% over
We're at
67.
It's not worth discussing any farther. I'm done. That's fine.
You started discussing.
Well, again, and thank you, Mr. Rhodes, because I know you care about our kids and you want to see our kids taken care of. And I think we both agree to that. I will tell you, there are people who would have you think that we are back to ground zero, and that is just not true.
And I agree, and you should build on that point, and we all should build on that point every chance we get, because we was just in here a year ago, not even a year ago, it's been years we've been fighting the 50-50 share. We're at an 80-20 right now. That's positive for our school district. Let me ask this question, because I'm still confused on what I don't want to use the word issues are, but would this have happened if we didn't push back the date for when we were supposed to put shovels on the ground?
Well-
Because they essentially had to reassess us.
Due to that.
Well, and again, I can't go back and say, would the middle school have been on that inspection cycle or not? I don't know. Our understanding is that whatever year it was Mr. Kirby had identified was going to be the last year that that building was on the cycle.
Correct.
So would that have been on the cycle again? I don't know. I just know that it ended up being on that cycle. So that I don't know, because we don't control that
Not to
cycle.
be on the cycle.
That was our understanding.
Correct.
That was our understanding. But nevertheless, we are still just at 75-25, better off than we were, and then we do still qualify for the 5%.
Which
Now-
ultimately will make it hard to turn down the middle school now.
Well, we are at 80-20, which in August, all three of the commissioners in August meeting said 80-20 was reasonable.
And that was on public
Now,
record.
I will say, what seems to continue to linger as a question mark, although we continue to advocate and ask questions, is the General Assembly's pre-authorized $9 million.
Yes.
Now, I
It
do
was
think
8
it's.
million, wasn't
Or
it?
8 million, forgive me, 8 million, yes. 4 in FY '27 and 4 in FY '28, so thank you. Now, it's important to understand that pre-authorization was really the General Assembly's effort to help us because our formula was only at 50/50.
Correct.
The root cause of why we were getting that pre-authorization is no longer the case, right? Our formula has been adjusted. So, I don't know I don't know where the General Assembly, if they still intend on giving that, pre-authorization. To me, it seems uncertain that would continue because the root cause, of the formula has in fact been adjusted. But we continue to inquire and advocate that we still need that. Now, whether we will get that, I think we will see at the end of the season.
And this
Legislative.
is a budget meeting, so we're not gonna linger too long on this, because I'm still confused on, people are saying, what about us? Like, are people complaining about the 80-20 split?
Well, there was a
Well, I
comment
think-
made last week by at least one of the county commissioners. I was at the meeting with Dr. McComas and Mr. Kirby when there, the discussion about losing a bump up and perhaps losing the 8 million. One of the commissioners did make the comment, so we're back to where we started.
But that's not even a smart comment to make, because we're not back to where we started.
Right, well,
wouldn't have been in
it's a
this position.
mischaracterization, right?
We kept the progress of the shovels going in the ground as they were supposed to do in January, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
I would just say this, well, go ahead, I didn't mean, okay. I would just say this. The reality is, we have now 75-25, and we were at 50-50.
That's a fact, can't be disputed.
We still thankfully are eligible for the additional 5%
And that's a
relative
fact,
to
can't be
poverty.
disputed.
That brings us up to 80-20.
I just don't see why that's not a silver
Prior
line.
to the IAC making their adjustment, if you counted the incentive for maintenance, the 5% for poverty, and the General Assembly's pre-authorization, that put us at 67% state and the difference local. So right now, we are at 80% state and 20% local.
That'd be an increase, I know
So-
I'm not good with math, but that's an increase of 13% of what we were expecting, correct?
And right where they said they want us to be.
So it sounds like we're making progress.
Well, right, and it's a political fight. There are people who don't want to see us get a new middle school. They don't want to see it happen, and so they will pull at every string to help prevent that.
The community needs to remember that when it comes time to go vote for these people. Simple. You either choosing a new middle school and a new way to look at how we move public education, or you're looking for the status quo and what we have been accepting. It's a choice we're all gonna make in June and November. It's that simple with public education in King County. You don't even have to linger on the conversation.
Well, I'm just hopeful that we are able to move forward because at the end of the day, it is what our kids and community deserve and need. And, at the end of the day, we are where we are at this point.
Agreed.
Alrighty, so, anybody else have anything else to say? Is there any public participation, Ms. Manley? I just want to remind, the thing, so speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments about the actions or statements of individual staff members are not appropriate for public comments and should be referred to the superintendent of schools or processed through available channels. If submitting written testimony, speakers are requested to provide a copy to the president. Please remember that this is an opportunity for the community to address their comments to the board. It is not an opportunity for dialogue. If you have questions that need an answer, please contact the superintendent or write a letter to the Board of Education and a response will be sent back to you. Dr. McComas, can you set the clock for 3
I have it
minutes?
ready to go.
Mr. Wall, and the topic is
CMS funding.
King County Middle School funding. All righty, the clock is starting, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody got pencil and paper? Write this down. Ready?
Yeah.
$15 million is you've got hard costs and soft costs. You got a $68 million project. $15 million are soft costs. Subtract 15 million from 68 million, and that is what is going to be divided between the state and the county. Then take 75% of that number, which I forget what it is, 63 million, something, no, it's even less than that. 53 million. So you take 75% of the 53 million, 25% of the 53 million, but you've got to add the 15 million. This is what Ron's doing. He's taking the 15 million soft costs and adding it in to the 25% of that other number, and that's how he's coming up with $30 million. That's how they're coming up with $30 million, and that's why Ron is saying we're back to ground zero, because that was the number before we went from 50-50 to 75-25. We're very fortunate. We've got a 50% increase. Imagine what would have happened if we lost that 5% and the pro authorization, 8 million, and we were still at 50%. So we are in a pretty good damn position here, all things considered. But if you take the 15 million soft cost, that's 100% what we're paying. Then to subtract that from the 68 million, bring that down, take 75% of that number and 25% of that number, which is the county cost. Add those two numbers back up, and you're at $30 million. That's where they're coming from. That's what they're getting at, and that's why I believe Ron is saying, and the commissioners are saying, that we're basically back to square one, because we're at $30 million again. That's the math, folks.
Well, I will be happy. Thank you, Mr. Wall. And thank you for, again, your advocacy with the IAC. That's all part of, that's,
I'm sorry.
okay, you got 42 seconds. Go ahead. No, that's okay. I'll give you a
So
few
I'm
more.
in contact with Alex, and Alex is still working on a sliding scale. This was just a stopgap. This 25% spread over all of the counties that were defined as low wealth. Okay, that was something that he had to put in real quick. He couldn't change the whole formula. It was impossible to do that because of all the dynamics, the politics, the General Assembly, blah, 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 blah. But he is not finished. He is not finished. He is still working on a better program for not only low wealth, but also low population as well, because it's a combination of numbers there. So don't give up. Stay tuned. There's going to be, hopefully there's going to be more changes. I don't know if it's going to affect our program, but he's still working on it, because he and I are in communication, and the guy is definitely in our corner. I'm sorry I took longer.
That's
But
okay.
you all
Thank,
needed to know.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Wall, for adding that and continuing to advocate with the IAC for us. As I said earlier, I have the middle school as part of the agenda for our April 13th. I will have slides that break all of those numbers down. Today I was trying to focus on the agenda, which was the operating budget, but I will have all that in print for you to see on slides and for the whole community to see.
I apologize for adding this little subject in, but it just really wanted to talk about it. I'm glad we did, because at the next meeting, we'll be prepared and we'll be able to
Yeah,
discuss it.
I appreciate, Mr. Rhodes. I just want to make sure that we are not adding to a mischaracterization. And then, again, for those folks who really don't want to see our kids get a new middle school, I don't want to add to that, because that's not what our community deserves. So,
And it's still a false narrative that's being spun.
yeah.
All righty. So anything else, guys, before I read off this? All righty. The next meeting of the Board of Education of Kent County will be held on Monday, April 13th, 2026, beginning at 5:30 p.m. with the open session. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 p.m. This meeting will be located at the Administrative Building in the boardroom, 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rock Hall. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, the last of the community conversations is Thursday, correct?
It is Thursday and it's virtual.
Yeah. Now, where does somebody find that link?
Right, so we will push the link out for those who are all part of our robocall, and we'll have a link on our website.
Okay, because I think board members would like to be able to
Yes,
watch, and I
I know.
wasn't sure how to do that.
Yeah, Mr. DeVilio and Mr. Porter, he's over there.
Alrighty.
They're all prepared to help us push that out.
All righty, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
Bring a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Queen has made the motion, Mr. Rhodes is second. Is there any conversation? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.